My wife cheated on me, but that's not the worst part. She accused me of something I'd never do, hurting our child. She lied to the court, painted me as a violent father, and just like that, she won full custody. I lost everything: my home, my daughter, my name. I was broken. I was ready to give up. But then I heard my little girl ask one question: "Daddy, when are you coming home?" And in that moment, I knew I had to fight. Not with anger, not with rage, but with truth, with love, and with everything I had left. My name is Adam. I'm not famous, not rich, not perfect. I'm just a dad, a man who loved his little girl more than anything else in the world. And somehow, that made me the enemy. For a while, life was simple. I married Rachel 7 years ago. She was funny, full of energy, and always had something smart to say. I loved that about her. We laughed a lot in those early years. We dreamed about the kind of family we'd build. Then Lila came into our lives. Our daughter. The moment I saw her tiny fingers wrap around mine, I knew I'd do anything for her. Anything. I cut back on work, stopped going out with friends. I was there for every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every first word. I wasn't just trying to be a good dad, I was living for it. Rachel said she appreciated that, said I was steady, reliable. I thought we were okay. Maybe not perfect, but strong. But then, things changed. She started staying out late. Just drinks with coworkers. Just some time alone. Mike started appearing more. She said he was just a friend from her old job, but he came by too often, stayed too long, smiled too much. I didn't push. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just watched and hoped I was wrong. One night, she didn't come home. I texted, called. No answer. She walked in the next morning like nothing had happened, said she needed a night to think. That's when I felt it. This wasn't distance. It was escape. Still, I stayed calm. For Lila. I made breakfast. I kept the house clean. I held it all together because if I broke, the whole thing would collapse. But it didn't matter. A week later, a woman from Child Services showed up at my door. Calm, professional, holding a clipboard. "There's been a report. Concerns about the environment your daughter is in." My heart dropped. Lila was drawing on the carpet with markers. The house was spotless. Her backpack was ready for school. I asked who made the report. She said she couldn't say, but I already knew. Rachel had told them I was unstable, that I had anger issues, that I once screamed so loud the windows shook. She showed them a photo of a cracked spot on the wall. I had made it months ago, moving a bookshelf. But in her story, it became evidence of rage. She showed them old texts, ones I sent when I was scared of losing my family. "I can't do this without Lila. You're breaking me." They used those words against me, like proof. And just like that, the court gave her temporary, full custody. I was allowed to see my daughter for 2 hours every other Saturday at a supervised center, with a stranger watching like I was some kind of danger. Lila didn't understand. "Daddy, why can't you come home?" I had no answer. That night, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel until my hands went numb. I gave everything to my family, my time, my energy, my heart, and the person I trusted most, used it all to destroy me. But this isn't a story about giving up. This is about what happens when a father decides to fight, not with fists or anger, but with truth, patience, and proof. She thought she could rewrite who I was, but I still had the truth, and I was going to use it. After that first supervised visit, I went home and sat alone in Lila's empty room. Her drawings were still taped to the wall. Her favorite stuffed bunny was still on the bed. I sat there for a long time, holding it, just trying to remember what her voice sounded like when she laughed from her belly, back before she had to ask me, Why can't you come home, Daddy? I wanted to scream, break something, but I didn't, because I knew one thing. If I gave them even one reason to call me unstable, I'd lose her forever. So I didn't scream. I wrote. I started keeping a journal, not for my emotions, but for evidence, times, dates, what Rachel said, what she did, what Lila said, who showed up, who didn't. I recorded everything. Because if I was going to survive this, I needed to prove the truth, not feel it, not hope it, prove it. A week later, Rachel missed Lila's pickup from school. The teacher called me because I was still listed as an emergency contact. I showed up, and Lila ran into my arms like she hadn't seen me in a year. Rachel didn't show up for another hour. She walked in laughing on the phone, no apology, no explanation. When the school counselor asked about it later, Rachel said, "Adam's just trying to make me look like a bad mom. He's bitter." I didn't argue. I just noted it down. That weekend, during our supervised visit, Lila told me something that cracked my chest open. Mommy said, if I say you're scary, we won't have to come here anymore. I didn't say a word. I just hugged her tighter and asked if she wanted to color. That night, I cried in the shower, silently, because even my walls felt too thin for grief like that. Then came the day I saw Mike picking Lila up from school. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was dropping off a backpack she'd left at my place during our last visit. And there he was, leaning against Rachel's car. Lila climbed in. He opened the door for her like he belonged there. He kissed Rachel on the cheek. She laughed. I didn't do anything. I just watched. But I added that to my notes, too, because Mike wasn't just a friend anymore. He was part of this story now. And something about him had never sat right with me. A few days later, I met with my lawyer, Claire. She was calm, no nonsense, and didn't feed me false hope. I handed her my notebook, pages and pages of timelines, inconsistencies, missed pickups, and things Lila had said. She read it in silence, then looked up at me. If even half of this is true, we've got a case, but we need more, harder evidence. You ready to dig? I nodded. Claire helped me hire a private investigator, Paul, a retired cop who now made his living catching liars in custody battles. Quiet, sharp-eyed, and efficient. Within 2 weeks, Paul came back with footage, grainy but clear enough, of Mike picking up Lila multiple times. Of Rachel leaving Lila alone with him for hours while she went out drinking. Of them arguing outside a bar, visibly intoxicated, while Lila sat in the back seat of their car, waiting. He also found something I wasn't expecting. Mike had a criminal record, a sealed file from another state, but Paul got a hold of it. Domestic battery, 2015, pled down to disorderly conduct, restraining order from an ex-girlfriend. My stomach turned. Rachel had left our daughter alone with that man, repeatedly, and told the court I was the dangerous one. That's when I decided I wouldn't just defend myself. I would fight back. We submitted a motion to reopen the custody case with new evidence. Rachel tried to stall, claiming I was harassing her. But the court accepted the motion. The judge scheduled a hearing 2 weeks out. I kept seeing Lila in those 2-hour visits. I didn't tell her what was coming, but I told her something that helped both of us sleep better. I'm working on coming home, baby. I just need a little more time. She nodded and hugged me like she didn't want to let go. The week before court, Rachel sent me a text. This is going to destroy Lila. You need to stop. I didn't reply, because I had already started. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I wasn't fighting for pride. I was fighting for my daughter's right to know the truth, to know her dad wasn't what her mom said he was, to give her back the safety, love, and stability that Rachel had thrown away like it didn't matter. The morning of the hearing, I arrived early. My hands were cold, even though it was warm outside. I wore the same suit I'd worn to my wedding. It still fit. Funny how the past never quite leaves you. It just changes shape. Claire met me at the courthouse steps, holding a binder thicker than my daughter's favorite storybook. We have everything we need, she said. Now we let the truth do its job. Inside the courtroom, Rachel sat on the other side of the aisle, calm, composed, wearing her usual soft colors and fake empathy. Mike wasn't with her, but he didn't need to be. He'd left his fingerprints all over this mess. The judge, a stern woman named Keller, took her seat. The courtroom fell silent. Rachel's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of a concerned mother, of a calculated, manipulative ex-husband who couldn't let go. He said I was emotionally aggressive, inconsistent, and creating stress in Lila's life. He asked the court to make the temporary custody permanent. I didn't speak. Claire stood. She didn't raise her voice, didn't call names, she just opened the binder. Exhibit A. Video footage of Rachel leaving Lila with Mike multiple times. At school, at a cafe, in parking lots, sometimes for hours. Exhibit B. Security footage from a bar. Rachel, visibly drunk, arguing with Mike beside a parked car, while Lila sat inside, unattended. Exhibit C. Mike's sealed criminal record, uncovered by the investigator. Past domestic violence charges, a restraining order filed by an ex who'd moved out of state to escape him. The judge raised an eyebrow at that. Claire continued. Exhibit D. Transcripts from Lila's supervised visits. Notes from the social worker stating that Lila showed signs of coaching, confusion, and often spoke about what mommy told me to say. Exhibit E. My logs, my journal, hundreds of entries, dates, times, witnesses, missed pickups, ignored emails, broken promises. Then Claire pulled out a USB drive. With the court's permission, we'd like to play an audio file, recorded legally under one-party consent. The judge nodded. The room filled with the sound of Rachel's voice, shaky, annoyed, caught off guard. You need to stop pushing this. If you keep fighting, I'll say Lila cried when you touched her. You'll lose her forever. Gasps. Someone in the gallery covered their mouth. I didn't look at Rachel. I didn't need to. When it was time for me to speak, I stood. My voice didn't shake. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've said things I wish I hadn't. But I have never hurt my daughter. I have never endangered her. All I've ever done is show up. Every day. No matter how hard, no matter how painful. I showed up. The judge looked at me for a long moment. Then she turned to Rachel. Ms. Carter, do you deny making these statements? Rachel didn't answer at first. Then she said, barely above a whisper, I was angry. I didn't think he'd take it this far. That was the moment. Not a gavel slamming. Not a dramatic scream. Just a simple admission. And the shift in the courtroom was instant. From there, things moved fast. The judge rescinded the temporary custody order. She reinstated shared custody, pending a full review, with Lila returning to live with me immediately while Rachel underwent a psychological evaluation. Mike's record was submitted to the Child Protection Office. A formal report was filed. I walked out of that courtroom not with victory, but with relief. Outside, Claire squeezed my shoulder. You didn't just win, Adam. You saved her. That hit harder than anything else. I looked up and saw Lila with my sister across the parking lot, holding a juice box, wearing that same yellow hoodie she always insisted wasn't dirty, just cozy. She saw me, smiled, and ran. I dropped to my knees as she wrapped her arms around my neck. Are you coming home now, Daddy? I closed my eyes, holding her tighter than I ever had. Yeah, baby. I'm coming home. After the hearing, things didn't fall apart right away for Rachel. They unraveled, slowly, painfully, and all in the open. It started with whispers in the school pickup line. Parents who used to smile at her started turning away. A few teachers she used to chat with stopped responding to her emails. Word spread fast. Not because I told anyone, because truth travels on its own once it's out. The parenting group she used to run on Facebook shut down within a week. The friend circle she leaned on? Gone. Even the ones who used to side with her started keeping their distance. And Mike? He ghosted her, blocked her, disappeared completely. She had put everything on the line for a man who vanished the second the consequences came knocking. I didn't reach out. I didn't need to. Rachel sent one email. Just one. I know you hate me. I'm sorry. I lost control. If it's okay, I'd still like to write to Lila. I didn't answer right away, because this time it wasn't about what Rachel wanted. It was about what Lila needed, and she needed space, safety, stability. Those first few weeks back home with Lila were quiet and soft. I let her pick where she wanted to sleep. We camped out in the living room for days, built pillow forts, ate cereal for dinner, and watched cartoons until we passed out. I didn't rush her into normal. I just made her feel safe again. And she noticed, not with big words, but in small ways. You don't yell like Mommy said you did. You make pancakes better than anyone. I like this house more. Little by little, she started smiling wider, laughing louder, sleeping through the night. We found a rhythm again, just me and her. I adjusted my work schedule to pick her up from school every day. I started going to therapy, not just for court requirements, but for me. Because I wanted to understand how I let things get that far, how I didn't see it sooner, how I could heal, not just survive. Rachel still had supervised visits. Sometimes she showed up. Sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she tried to pretend nothing had changed. But everything had. The court ordered her to attend parenting classes and individual counseling before any custody could be reviewed. She asked for a second hearing. The judge said no. Not until meaningful change is demonstrated. For the first time, Rachel couldn't control the narrative, and that broke her more than anything else. As for me, I didn't feel victorious, just relieved, lighter. The storm had passed, and in the quiet that followed, I could finally breathe again. I started writing again. Not logs or evidence, but little things Lila said. Moments we shared. Memories I wanted to keep. I didn't want to forget the pain, but I didn't want it to define us either. Because now we were building something new. One evening, after Lila brushed her teeth and climbed into bed, she looked up at me and asked, "You're not going anywhere now, right?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Not a chance. I'm staying right here." She pulled her blanket up to her chin, nodded, and whispered, "Good. I like it better when it's just us." It's been over a year since the courtroom. Life is quieter now. Not boring, just peaceful. And after everything we went through, peace feels like the biggest gift of all. Lila and I have a rhythm. We walk to school in the mornings, hand in hand. We take turns picking the music on the drive home. She always picks Taylor Swift. I pretend I don't like it, but I know all the words now. We eat dinner at the kitchen table every night. No screens, just us, and sometimes burnt grilled cheese. She says mine are better than school lunch. I'll take that win. The house still has cracks from before, physical and emotional. I haven't fixed all of them, and maybe that's okay. They remind me where we've been, what we survived. Rachel hasn't tried to regain custody again. She still writes sometimes. Birthday cards, postcards from therapy retreats. I read them first. Then, if they're right, I pass them to Lila. Lila still asks about her mom sometimes. I don't lie. I don't blame. I just say, she loves you in her own way. But right now, Daddy's job is to keep you safe. That's all that matters. And she nods. She always nods. Some days I still get flashbacks. The courtroom. The empty house. That first night, I slept in Lila's bed alone, holding her favorite bunny, wondering if I'd ever hear her laugh again. But those thoughts don't break me anymore. They just remind me how far we've come. Here's what I've learned. You can do everything right. and still lose everything. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. You don't have to scream to be strong. You don't have to fight with fists to win. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is not give up. To every father out there still fighting in silence, I see you. I was you. You're not alone. Keep showing up, even when they twist your words, even when they lie about who you are, even when the system feels like it's against you. Because the truth? Your child will remember who stayed, who listened, who loved without conditions, who never left, even when the world told them to. This wasn't a war I wanted, but it was one I had to fight. And now, every time Lila runs to the door yelling, "Dad!" with glitter on her hands and a new drawing for the fridge, I know I made it out, and I made it back to where I belong. If this story touched something inside you, maybe a memory, maybe a fear, maybe a quiet hope, then you're not alone. A father's love is quiet but powerful. It doesn't ask for praise. It doesn't post selfies. It doesn't write long captions. It just shows up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Even when the world calls you the villain in someone else's story. If you've ever been misunderstood, manipulated, or pushed aside, remember this. The truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But it always finds its way. And when it does, it brings light with it. To every parent, mother, or father, fighting quiet battles behind closed doors, don't give up. Never give up. Your child is watching. And one day, they'll remember who stood in the storm and stayed. Because family matters. Because silent strength is still strength. Because healing begins with one small choice, not to give in. If this story spoke to you, even in a small way, leave a comment. Maybe you've lived through something like this. Maybe you know someone who has. Your voice could be the light someone else needs right now. If you believe real stories like this deserve to be heard, like, share, subscribe. Not for views, but for truth, for healing. Because not every story ends in applause. But the ones that matter, stay with us. And so do you. You're still standing, and that means everything.